In today's video, let's talk about the buyer's agent agreement, buyer's representation agreements. So this is basically the form that now you have to sign to hire a buyer's agent to actually see any homes. The workaround is that you don't have to sign this if you call the listing agent directly to see that one house. That listing agent is hired by the seller and you don't have to sign this. But the chance of being able to see all the homes available is going to be pretty difficult in my opinion. And if you go without having a representation, that means you have to understand the home buying process, the legal document, going through all the inspection and everything, which I personally don't recommend. As I mentioned, if I go into a different state, I'll hire other buyer's agent, even though I know the national real estate law, but I don't know the state law. And so that's where I stand. And I'll give you just a section of what they are without getting into too much of the details because I'm not really allowed to share this form because of the licensing agreement. I'll just give you the sections and what they are, not like, exactly what's written here. So we're not really supposed to share this online, but I'll just explain what it is. So they're about a little bit more than 10 different sections. The first thing is it basically defines who they are, the buyer's name, the agent's name, the agent's phone number, and which brokerage that agent is belong to. The number two is the exclusivity and which areas that you're agreeing to. So in this case, I'm licensed in state of Oregon. I can cover, Portland Metro. I'm not going to be able to sell a house in like Klamath, Oregon, which is like 2 hours away from here, maybe 3 hours. But it basically defines which section that the agent is helping the buyers with. And then the other section right below that, it has like price range and everything. And you can be as detailed as possible here, but we have a general understanding of like if you're buying a single family home within like $400,000 and $600,000, that's kind of the information that goes in there. And then it talks about the representation of the seller and other buyers. And there's what we call, so in Oregon, the agent can represent both sellers and buyer. And it's called disclosed limited agency. It's kind of complicated, but it can be done. In some states, it's not allowed, but in Oregon, it is allowed with written agreement from both sides. And it talks about some of that. And then the next one is until when. So this agreement lasts until July of 2026. Pretty much all the agreement has to have the due date. It really can't be like perpetually, forever kind of agreement doesn't exist. You could do 10-year agreement, but who 10 years is too much. So I typically set this for like maybe 6 months, assuming that we can find a home in the first month or two, and then it takes about a month to close. But in the past, I've had many buyers who I work with. It took about a year too, because the market was so tough. But it basically has that section. And then what you are here for, what you're most curious about is the buyer's compensation. So in this form, basically you can set a set fee. It could be $1, $1 or $2 or $1 million or 2.some% or 3% of the purchase price. And so you can fill that in. More likely your agent will agree on this and then put that in so you can sign it. So there's that section in there. And it talks about how the buyers, they basically authorize if the seller's fee doesn't cover what you agreed on here. Let's say you agreed to pay 3% here, but you can only get like 2.5% from the seller. So there's a 0.5% gap. This agreement basically says that buyer has to pay that 0.5%. And so something you should know. It is important here. And there is a the non-refundable fee. This is kind of like an attorney retaining fee. I don't normally fill this out. That means it's basically no amount, that nobody has to pay any amount on that one. It's kind of bright here. I'm not sure. I can't change it. It is what it is. But when I will probably use this non-refundable fee in a situation where a buyer is looking to buy a home in Oregon and maybe in Washington, maybe in Seattle. So they're considering Portland and Seattle, and they are asking the buyer's agent, me in Oregon, to show them like 10 homes in one weekend. In that case, there's a chance that me as a buyer's agent showing 10 homes means probably minimum about 4 to 5 hours of driving around, scheduling and making the route and showing them homes. And that takes a lot of time, gas, energy, and everything. And in that case, I may have to do this one as a non-refundable fee for, let's say, $50 per hour for 5 hours showing homes. I may have to do this because I've had this situation like this before. Some out-of-town buyer working for Nike, he flew in and I showed him home, like 12 homes all day long. I went home at like starting at 11. When I got home, it was like 9 p.m. And the guy didn't buy anything and he flew back. Back then, we didn't have to sign this. And my time was completely wasted. And the guy was actually not so nice. He was a jerk. He didn't say anything afterwards. There's nothing. So in that kind of situation, I don't know if I will take that situation ever again. But if somebody was really nice and like, I have to do this, if I can pay you some fee, I'll be happy to do it. I mean, would you do it? Then I might consider having this non-refundable fee in case they don't buy anything, or I don't know, they want to cancel. But other than that, in normal situation, I don't make buyers pay this. This camera is all over the board here. I apologize. That's a little bit better. The next one is the early termination, and there is a field that it talks about paying fees, whatnot. But in early, I don't normally charge any early termination fee because, in my opinion, if the working relationship doesn't work for buyer or me or both, it's a mutual decision in many cases, and in that case, it's better to let each other go. And I don't normally charge this, but again, like out-of-town buyer just checking out the city and the buyer wants me to just be the tour guide, I may have to put some amount in there. And then the next section is a buyer's agent's obligation. So this is where how buyers should act, like showing all the communication, protecting the buyer. There are about 10 different things, whatnot. And then the next section is a buyer's obligation. It means that you as a buyer, what you should not do, such as like quitting the job, resigning from the job that would jeopardize purchase while you're under contract, or something like that. I don't know if it's something buyer can control, but it basically says buyers should communicate diligently and doing those things. I mean, that's what it is. And then the next section is the part where it talks about buyer's agents are not experts in like survey, like engineering, geological stuff, like permits. Buyer's agents are not supposed to do those things for you. And so it kind of really specifies it and encouraging buyers to hire the real experts in any sort of areas where buyers are concerned with. And so simply put, I mean, buyer's agent job is really, facilitating the real estate transaction, not so much about, oh, I know about the survey. No, I don't. I know about engineering. No, I don't. We don't. I mean, we may have some knowledge, but it's very limited. It's all based on what we've seen in the previous transaction and previous inspection reports. So we are not experts in those. I mean, we can point things out and maybe say, hey, maybe you need to hire, the structural engineer to look at this, stilts or the foundation or slope. But we really don't know much. I mean, that's what this section talks about. And then the other one is if there's any kind of dispute, it's going to the arbitration, and in Oregon, you are basically letting go of to do the trial. But I'm not gonna talk about anything on this because I can't really interpret the real estate law or anything like that because I'm not qualified to talk about law. I'm just kind of like giving you a simple explanation of what these actions are. And then there's additional provision where it's basically blank, that you can modify things. I'm not sure what it is, but it can be such as I can't think of anything actually. But there is a blank section. And so this is basically a 4-page document. So this is buyer representation agreement. This is exclusive version. There is a non-exclusive version, which I don't see the point of me working as a non-exclusive agent because I don't have time for that. If the buyer is not willing to commit to work with me, I just can't work with that buyer because there's a chance that I could spend a lot of time and effort and I'd make zero. And I've done that before, and I know I'm not there to do that anymore. So if the buyers are ready to, what I recommend is this: buyers should interview at least 2-3 different buyer's agents and decide who they're most comfortable with, who they feel like they can trust this person, who they feel that they have the most experience, they have the negotiation skill, the contract understanding, pricing knowledge, any kind of communication skill, over the phone negotiation skill. All those things buyers need to decide after interviewing some agents. And if buyer is wanting to work with multiple buyers, I've had that once before. Again, time waster for the realtors. There's one buyer before this form came out. So this form is actually good for realtors. Before this form came out, we had this form, but we're not really required to have them sign it. I work for this buyer, the same thing. Work for them about a month or two. I show them minimum 10 homes. So this is me going out during the weekend, showing them home, and they talk about the house for 1 hour. So one house takes typically about 1.5 hours to 2 hours because I had to go outside to banks and different parts of the city. And then later on they got frustrated because they didn't see many homes or it was too competitive. They didn't get the house. And in the meantime, they were apparently working with another buyer's agent. So basically they were doing the multiple agent deal, and I thought I was the exclusive agent, but they were. So at the end they said, well, we'll just work with whoever find me the best house. If I knew that, I would not have spent my month of time. So in a way, this is more of a making very clear that is the buyers is going to work with me exclusively. 99.99% of the buyers wouldn't do such things, wasting my time and at the end working with somebody else. And there were about twice maybe like that happened in my last career, which is I've been selling this for about 17 years. And it was very unpleasant. But what can I do? Later on, look them up. They didn't buy that good of homes. Both of them. They didn't buy a good deal. I'm like, that's their loss because they decided to work with somebody else. They didn't work with me. That's my opinion, by the way. So let's lastly talk about, do you need to sign this? No, you don't. So as I mentioned in the earlier video, that if you don't sign this, the way to see homes right now in 2025 is to call the listing agent directly. Now, listing agent may not or may show you the home. I'm not sure. If I get the call, I will go through the vetting process that this is a real person, not a scammer. They're pre-approved or have cash to see the house, because those are the process that I do and my company does. But other agents, I don't know how they operate. But theoretically, if you call the listing agent, you don't have to sign this, and they should show you the house. Because they represent the seller and they want to sell the house, right? And so they might send other buyer to represent them from the same office, which is allowed. So that's what it is. I know this, at first it was very chaotic because we were all confused how to process this after the August 2004, the lawsuit settlement. But now it's trying to get to where everything is more clear. Who pays who, how they pay, and this and that. And so one last thing that I want to add here is that, let's say you agree to pay like 2.5% or 3% here with me. My job will be really try to negotiate that fee into the offer. And so you as a buyer has a final saying in it. Let's say Shawn's fee is 3%, and we write that in the offer, and the seller says, no, we're going to only pay 1% to Shawn. That happened before, actually. Not the exact number, but that happened. And the buyer, buyers at the time, they believe that I deserve to get paid of what we put in that offer. And it didn't give a good taste in our mouth, in a sense that, and also the seller didn't want to negotiate on the price or the repairs. It was just very like my way or highway type of seller, and the deal didn't work out. And so my buyer went out and bought another home, actually better home, and that home, the other home that, the very firm seller home, that house didn't sell. My guess is that approach didn't work with many other buyers. It was on the market for like 4 months or something, and they just took it off the market. But that can happen. But my goal is, like I said, try to negotiate the fee in the offer with the price and everything. And so my buyers don't have to pay any out of their pocket. That is the goal. But the buyer can say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to pull out, or in the initial part, the buyer may need to negotiate the fee with me. So I know this is a lot of information. I wanted to give you a short version of what the buyer is signing right now, but when I start opening mouth, it can get kind of long. So it is what it is. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions about Portland, Oregon market, buying or home selling process, give me a call, 503-515-4499. And thanks for watching. Hit that like button and smash that subscribe button. Thanks so much.